Good morning, everybody, and a happy Monday morning to you. My goodness. All right, we have a lot of royal family news, but then, of course, we know that Harry, Meghan, and Archie were spotted out on the beach, and also Jessica Mulroney has stepped forward. She is now regretting her friendship with Meghan Markle. So there's a lot in here. That's why this video is so long, but you know me, I got to cover it all. So let's just jump in and get busy, shall we? Let's go. All right, we're starting off with a lot of good news. The nephew of King Charles, which is how these articles are putting it, has gotten engaged. Peter Phillips is engaged to Harriet Sperling, the nurse. I love that. It's been 4 years since his divorce. They put out an announcement. Mr. Peter Phillips, the son of HRH, the Princess Royal, and Captain Mark Phillips, and Miss Harriet Sperling, daughter of the late Mr. Rupert Sanders and Mrs. Mary Sanders, have today confirmed their official engagement. Now, we know that Peter Phillips is the eldest grandchild of the late Queen Elizabeth. He was born in 1977. He married Autumn Kelly from 2008 to 2021, and he will be the first member of the British family in his generation to divorce their spouse and remarry. I knew something was going on because she was so present at Ascot this year. You know, we knew something was happening. She is a pediatric nurse for the NHS. She's also a freelance writer and is passionate about early brain development in babies, just like Princess Catherine. She has a daughter from a previous relationship, and she apparently wrote in previous articles about being a single mom. And they met at a sporting event. They made their debut as a couple in May of 2024. And now we have another fabulous royal wedding to look forward to. Amazing. All right, let's move on. Now, at the same time, an announcement was made that Lady Eliza Spencer, Princess Diana's niece, also got engaged. But if you look at the article, it says Princess Diana just revealed her engagement. Really? Anyway, this took place in Greece. Look at that sunset. Gorgeous, beautiful proposal. She fell to her knees, obviously. I love the photos and the ring. Also interesting, apparently Charles Spencer was not, mentioned, wasn't tagged, and he has said nothing about the engagement. All right, let's move on. All right, next up, I wanted to touch on this. Remember, they're saying all these gardeners at Highgrove left. Anyway, one of the king's former gardeners has spoken out, and what he says is the king is gone to Scotland between July and August. You know, he's at Balmoral Castle for a vacation, and they said he's always keeping in touch to know what's going on in the garden. They think that's just the nature of the job and how he and the royal family run everything. They ask weekly what's going on because the guy said otherwise things would fall apart and they would lose sight of what was happening. They also said that there was always a two-way conversation. The king didn't order people around. Their staff turnover, just as an FYI, is below the national average, as is the number of formal grievances raised. And as far as the pay goes, they make more than the national average for a gardener. All right, let's stick with King Charles. This is really cool. On July 23rd, there was a 200-year-old tradition started by Queen Charlotte assigning a royal signature at the Sandringham estate, and that's what happened. So as part of the custom, the Royal Horticultural Society unveiled a new botanical painting titled Royal Signature in his honor. The artwork not only reflects centuries of heritage, but celebrates Charles's deep connection to the RHS, which we know he supports as a patron. The painting was done by Gillian Barlow, and it's the royal coat of arms surrounded by magnolias and geraniums and all kinds of flowers and stuff that she loves. Then there was also some calligraphy done on it. Now, she also created the royal signature for the late Queen Elizabeth in 2022. All right, let's move on and change the tone just a little bit. What they're saying is that with Charles having cancer, it's time for the plans of succession to be made. It's also precipitated, the reconciliation, the supposed reconciliation. But what's going on is what's going to happen to Princess Diana's childhood home, where we know Diana grew up. Well, I'm sure Harry would love to get it. That's a Spencer family thing, not a royal family thing, and it belongs to Charles Spencer, and it will go to his son when he passes. All right, now I want to just show this really quickly. I found this on Twitter. This is absolutely hilarious, and yes, I would send this to William and Catherine if I knew where to purchase them. Let's move on. Let's talk now about one of Meghan's projects. Besides the fact that Spotify and Lemonada are over and Netflix is over, don't forget that she had this Shop Me thing where she was putting up clothing, or the Shop My. You know what I'm talking about. It was a hand-picked and curated collection of the things she loved, and you could buy them. And of course, she made money off of the purchases. She had some inexpensive stuff like a skirt for $105. But then, of course, we had these kinds of items, ridiculously expensive. Anyway, it's been 11 weeks since she posted anything. So it looks like this is just another project that's been completely shelved. Okay, I had to touch on this because I just thought this was hilarious. They're saying that Harry and Meghan are going to make a huge comeback, even though their contract with Netflix has been canceled, because after all, they can go to other streaming services. Now, I'm always reminded of this video where Harry and Meghan went to the Lion King premiere instead of going to a memorial for some fallen Marines, of which Harry was supposed to be in charge of them at the time. But no, they blew it off for this, and Harry asked them for some work at Disney, some voiceover work. It became very obvious very quickly why Harry, as the Captain General of the Marines, blew them off. But let's not forget what Disney said, that Meghan needs Disney more than Disney needs Meghan. So if they think they're going to sell something to Disney, that's not happening. Then, of course, she spent a lot of time curating a friendship with the CEO of Paramount and his wife. The problem is he just lost his job. Now we're being told that possibly she's so desperate she may want to be on The View. They'll never have her. All right, next up, it's now being announced that Meghan's As Ever products are going to be sold at 2 new Netflix stores in the United States. So they're probably going to start trying to sell the stuff. And what's interesting is what they found is that the employees are going to earn less in an hour than some of the products that are being sold. So Netflix House is looking for people to staff its new stores in the King of Prussia shopping mall in Philadelphia and the Galleria Mall in Dallas. But the candidates will be paid as little as $20 an hour, which is less than the price points of some of Meghan's products. So they're finally going to sell her products along with products from other favorite shows. You get immersive experiences related to the hit programs. You get to eat at restaurants. And so Netflix put out a listing that they're looking for crew members whose duties include delivering best-in-class customer service and creating an exceptional guest experience. They also said the crew member will provide general information, sell and scan tickets, manage guest flow and queuing, and sell merchandise and more. All right, before we get into our 2 big stories for today, one more thing. It's being reported that Meghan is a little nervous because she's afraid that the king might tell Harry, if you want to come back, you got to get rid of Meghan. And so she's actually concerned that he might do that because, let's be honest, without him, she's nothing. She really is. And just as an FYI, there was another poll. You know how the UK loves their polls. Will William strip Harry and Meghan's titles? And the overwhelming response was a big, fat yes. All right, let's move on to one of our big stories. Here's one of the big stories. Apparently, the family was out because Archie was taking some surfing lessons. Now, there's some interesting things going on. First of all, some of these pictures, look at this. Harry's got 8 fingers. Definitely something going on here. Does anybody believe that they're on this beach with all of these people and nobody knew that they were going to be there and nobody spotted them? Does anybody truly believe that? I believe they called the paparazzi and the paparazzi showed up to take pictures. It also shows that Meghan and Harry were literally not communicating, talking. Only once did I ever see them in any of these pictures standing next to each other. It does appear Lily was there. There she is on the right. Although Meghan, it looks like, didn't bother to put a hat on her. or anything else to protect her from the sun. If she's got such light skin, why isn't she covered up like Meghan is? You know what I mean? Anyway, I think this was a setup pap shot to show them as a happy family out and about doing normal things. Of course, no security was around. Of course, security was there. Absolutely, security was there. I don't know who thinks that they're not, but notice that once again, they try to cut off Archie's face. And FYI, the article says the UK has its usual rainy misery and Harry is loving every bit of the sun, proving the move to the States was the best decision ever. Meghan was seen taking pictures with her cell phone of Archie because she has to have those for her Instagram account. And then, of course, giving the poor kid something to drink, which is probably what he wanted in the first place and couldn't get until she took her picture. Well, here's the big problem. You remember they don't want to show the kids, right? Well, that's over. Because Surf Happens, who was running the lesson, put up a video that clearly shows Archie's full face as he's rolling around on the ground. I'm about to show you the part that has Archie in it. The video shows them panning around and I slowed it down dramatically for you. And there's Archie rolling on the ground. So here's a few things that come to my mind. Number one, he's dressed differently than the other kids. Why? Number two, why isn't he interacting with the other kids? Why is he rolling around by himself on the sand? Something is definitely wrong with this picture. Maybe because he's been so isolated his whole life, he doesn't know how to socialize. Maybe he's got a medical issue. Who knows? All right, let's move on to our second big story. Jessica Mulroney, her marriage has collapsed. She has split from her 45-year-old husband, Ben. They say that Ben walked away, and she's very upset, Jessica is, about the way things ended. I'm sure you guys remember she was actually the chief bridesmaid to Meghan. They were so close that her twin sons, Brian and John, were the page boys that carried Meghan's train, and they were wearing a miniature of Harry's Blues and Royals, and her daughter Ivy was a bridesmaid along with Princess Charlotte. Meghan dropped Jessica after Jessica became entangled in that race row with another blogger. But Jessica's husband, who happens to be the son of the late Canadian Prime Minister, Brian Mulroney, backed his wife to the hilt and even left his job as a television presenter to support her. Believe it or not, it's being reported that Jessica traces her current unhappiness back to Meghan Markle and her wedding, and she regrets now becoming friends with Meghan. While she enjoyed at the time all the exposure that it brought to her, it's that same exposure which caused her social media rift to blow up the way it did and to lend to the end of the friendship with Meghan and the end of her marriage. She said if she could go back and do things over, she would never be a part of that wedding. They supposedly were so close, like sisters. They vacationed together. Jessica hooked Meghan up with all the right people, and she considered Meghan family, but she's saying now that the whole time was just a dark cloud. Jessica and her husband had been married for 6 years when she met Meghan in 2014, and Jessica had been dubbed, quote, the fairy godmother of Canadian fashion by Harper's Bazaar, and she already was working for the First Lady, Sophie Trudeau, among other people, which is probably why Meghan attached herself to her. It's through Jessica that Meghan met Marcus Anderson, who was the global membership director of Soho House. It connected her to Justin Trudeau and Sophie, and she turned Meghan from a jobbing LA actress to a more sophisticated figure. In Finding Freedom, according to Omid Scobie, it was Jessica that arranged for Meghan to use the private jet of the Canadian real estate power couple Crystal Koo and Michael Cooper, who were longtime friends of Jessica's, to get Meghan to London so she could spend time with Harry. We know it was Jessica that Meghan was FaceTiming when Harry was just about to propose. It was Jessica that helped style Meghan for her engagement photo call and later traveled with her on her first royal tour to Australia as a stylist. It's being said the friendship quietly ended pretty much on the spot. And Meghan, who once left Archie with Jessica when she went on a trip to the UK, no longer speaks to her or sees her. And any public praise that she made about Jessica on her blog, like the one where she called her the savvy and fashionable and très cool, blah, 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 has now gone. These are comments she made on the TIG. It's being said that she found hope and happiness through sobriety and therapy. But the point is, here she is at one of the lowest times in her life, and Meghan comes along and delivers the coup de grace to their relationship. When Mindy Kaling, Jessica's most famous client before Meghan, was invited onto Meghan's show, and it almost feels like Meghan was sending Jessica a message, if you get my drift. Personally, I hope Jessica writes a book and addresses some of the talk about the bullying that went on behind the scenes and the bullying that went on with Jessica's children and the other children. And let me just remind you of something. We had heard that Meghan didn't want Charlotte in the wedding, right? And then this video came out. I showed this to you years ago. When Charlotte went by Meghan, Meghan dropped her smile, scoured at Charlotte, and then smiled again towards Ivy, Jessica's daughter, when she came by. Well, let me point something out. After the wedding, when the children came out, notice that George and Charlotte are not with them. Correct. They were kept away from the kids. After they went down the aisle, the nanny took George and Charlotte separately aside, and then George and Charlotte walked back down the aisle after the wedding, holding on to William and Catherine's hands. Now, that's never been done at any of the other weddings. So the question is, why? We all heard the rumors about the kids, that Ivy was bullying Charlotte, that she made Charlotte cry, that Meghan said things like, Ivy, you're the most beautiful girl, things like that. But it was pretty obvious that the kids were being held separately. And just to show you that this is not normal, here's Eugenie and Jack. And as you can see, George and Charlotte are walking back down the aisle after the wedding with all the other children, just like they all walked in together. They're walking out together. But that's not what happened at Harry and Meghan's wedding. So there was definitely some bullying going on, because I can't think of any other reason why George and Charlotte would have to be isolated from Jessica's children. My goodness, I want your comments on this. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. Go down into the description box where you'll find the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, a link to my second channel, a link to my father's book, which is still up for sale on Amazon, and a link to my Amazon wish list, as well as a physical address. For those of you who have donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.